The crystal glass slipped from my grasp as the words left her lips, shattering against the mahogany floor in perfect synchronization with my dignity. The sound silenced the dining room, but Fiona's voice cut through the stillness with surgical precision. "Rachel, sweetie," she said, her words dripping with artificial sympathy as she adjusted her diamond bracelet. "I'm sure you can understand that Emerald Bay requires a certain social fluency. Perhaps this family vacation just isn't suitable for someone with your background." 20 faces turned toward me, some with pity, others poorly concealing their satisfaction. The detailed vacation plans for the exclusive Emerald Bay resort that Fiona had spent 40 minutes meticulously presenting now felt like 20 daggers lodged between my ribs. My husband Nathan's leg pressed against mine under the table, a silent message that did nothing to slow my accelerating heartbeat. "My name is Rachel, I'm 32 and a former barista with a financial secret. This is the story of how I transformed a family vacation rejection into the most expensive lesson my mother-in-law ever learned." "Mother," Nathan said, his voice slicing through the uncomfortable silence, "if Rachel isn't welcome, then I'm not going either." The muscle in his jaw pulsed visibly beneath his skin. Fiona's expression hardened into the mask I'd come to recognize during 3 years of marriage to her son. "Don't be absurd, Nathan. The entire Hayes family will be there. Your cousins are flying in from London. You can't possibly miss it because your wife isn't." She paused, searching for words that would wound without appearing overtly cruel. "Accustomed to luxury settings." "She's right, Nathan," his sister Gwen interjected, rotating her wine glass between manicured fingers. "Rachel would feel completely out of place. Remember how uncomfortable she looked at the yacht club fundraiser?" What Gwen conveniently omitted was how she'd accidentally bumped into me that day, sending a full glass of red wine cascading down my dress before loudly offering to buy me something more appropriate while guests pretended not to eavesdrop. I placed my hand on Nathan's arm. "It's okay," I whispered, though my throat felt constricted. "You should go with your family." The flash of triumph that crossed Fiona's face made my skin burn. She believed she'd won, just as she had every other time she'd attempted to wedge herself between Nathan and that coffee shop girl he inexplicably married. When I met Nathan at Westlake Coffee where I worked while completing my MBA, he stood out from the other wealthy patrons, genuine, kind, never making me feel lesser for being the person serving him. When we fell in love, I thought I'd found my fairytale ending. I didn't anticipate his mother making it her life's mission to dissolve our marriage. Fiona Hayes wasn't merely rich, she was generational wealth personified, the kind who considered commercial first class to be roughing it. From our first introduction, she made it abundantly clear that a coffee girl had no place in the Hayes dynasty. "Darling," she would say to Nathan while I sat right beside him, "did you hear Madison Rothwell is back from Paris? Still single, apparently." For 3 years, I endured her constant undermining at every family gathering. "Oh, Rachel dear, is that dress from a department store? Or how quaint that you used to serve coffee. It must be so nice to never have to work again." What Fiona didn't know, what no one except Nathan knew, was that while making coffee and studying, I'd been quietly amassing a cryptocurrency portfolio since its infancy. Those investments had grown into a fortune that would make even the Hayes family appear middle class. But I remained quiet, living modestly and continually reinvesting. Nathan respected my wish to keep my wealth private, understanding it was the only way to know who valued me for myself rather than my bank account. As the vacation planning dinner concluded, Fiona practically glowed with self-importance. "I've reserved the entire Emerald Bay resort for 2 weeks," she repeated for perhaps the 5th time. "Private beaches, personal chefs, yacht excursions, only the absolute finest for the Hayes family." I smiled politely even as she deliberately excluded me from her elaborate plans. But as we drove home that night, I wasn't plotting how to change her mind. I was checking my phone for a very specific email confirmation. 6 months earlier, when I first overheard Fiona discussing Emerald Bay during one of their family brunches where I was deliberately seated at the far end of the table, I'd made several discreet inquiries. The resort had been struggling financially due to economic downturns, and its owner was quietly seeking a buyer. Through a series of shell companies, I had acquired not just the Emerald Bay Resort, but the entire island it occupied. After finalizing the acquisition, I established a rapport with Thomas, the resort manager, flying out to meet him in person a month before the Hayes vacation and bringing him into my confidence about my plan. I maintained the existing management team, anticipating this precise moment would arrive. The email I awaited appeared just as Nathan turned onto our street. Acquisition complete. All documentation finalized. Emerald Bay Island is officially yours. You're unusually quiet, Nathan observed as we entered our modest home, a residence Fiona constantly suggested we upgrade to something more befitting a haze. Just thinking, I replied, unable to suppress a slight smile. I'm so sorry about my mother, he sighed, loosening his tie. I'll tell her tomorrow that we are both staying home. I took his hands in mine. Actually, I think you should go. His eyebrows shot up. Without you? No way. Trust me, I said, feeling a plan crystallize. I think it's time your mother learned that appearances can be deceiving. Early the next morning, before Nathan left to join his family at their private hangar, I pulled him aside and revealed everything: my wealth, my ownership of the resort, and my plan. His eyes widened in shock before a slow smile spread across his face. I always knew you were extraordinary, he said, embracing me tightly. The following morning, as the Hayes family boarded their private jet to the South Pacific, I made another call. It was time to set my plan in motion. Fiona had no idea that her perfect vacation was about to deliver an unforgettable lesson about judging people by their backgrounds. While their plane crossed the Pacific, I made arrangements of my own. My laptop displayed the resort's security system, access to which I had secured during my ownership transition, ensuring I could monitor the entire property remotely, a feature the previous owner had installed that was about to become incredibly useful. I had established a secure connection allowing me to monitor everything remotely from our home office. The Hayes family arrived at Emerald Bay Resort late that afternoon. Through the cameras, I watched Fiona lead the group across immaculate white sand toward the luxury villas, already rehearsing how she'd share this exclusive experience on social media to inspire envy among her society friends. Welcome to Emerald Bay, the resort manager Thomas greeted them with the knowing smile I'd briefed him on. We've been expecting you. Fiona beamed. Everything looks exquisite. I assume the presidential villa is prepared for me. About that, Thomas replied, consulting his tablet with practiced concern. There seems to be a slight adjustment to your arrangements. The owner is currently occupying the presidential villa. Fiona's perfectly composed face crumpled in confusion. That's impossible. I specifically reserved the entire island. No other guests should be present. The owner isn't a guest, Mrs. Hayes, Thomas explained patiently. They own the property and have final authority over all accommodations. Well, who is this owner? I demand to speak with them immediately. Fiona's voice rose, causing other family members to gather around. Thomas smiled politely. Of course. If you'll all follow me to the main pavilion, the owner has left specific instructions for your arrival. The family was escorted to an elegant open-air pavilion overlooking the turquoise ocean. On a large screen, a video began playing. My face appeared and I watched through security feeds as Fiona's jaw literally dropped. Hello Hayes family, my recorded self said pleasantly. Welcome to my island. I paused deliberately. Yes, you heard correctly. I own Emerald Bay Resort, along with several other luxury properties worldwide. The stunned silence was broken by Fiona's audible gasp. Nathan suppressed a smile, having been informed of the truth just before boarding their flight. I had pulled him aside and whispered the reality of my wealth and ownership of the resort. You see, I continued on screen, while you were busy judging me for making coffee and assuming I couldn't possibly understand luxury experiences, I was building an empire. That coffee girl you left behind is worth more than the entire Hayes fortune combined. Fiona collapsed into a chair, her designer purse tumbling to the ground. Gwen's face transformed into an interesting shade of green. Now, about your accommodations, Fiona, you'll be staying in our economy villa. It's quite basic by your standards, but as you so eloquently stated, some people need to learn their place. The rest of the family may choose from our standard rooms. This is outrageous. Fiona shrieked. I paid for the presidential villa. Your deposit has been refunded, Thomas informed her smoothly. The owner's decision is final, the video continued. Oh, and Fiona, remember how you said luxury resorts can be overwhelming for someone of my background? Let's test that theory. I've arranged for you to work as a server at the beach bar during your stay. Consider it an educational experience about judging people based on their occupations. Fiona's face contorted with rage. I will not. Do you know who I am? Yes, Thomas replied calmly. You're the mother-in-law of our owner, who has left explicit instructions. If you don't wish to comply, you're welcome to leave, though the next flight isn't for 3 days. What followed was chaos. Fiona threatened lawsuits, demanded phones, which mysteriously had no signal, thanks to the signal jammers I had discreetly installed throughout the resort, and even attempted to arrange a private helicopter, all unavailable by my orders. For the next 2 weeks, the mighty Fiona Hayes served drinks to her own family members, wearing the standard staff uniform she'd so often ridiculed. Every time she delivered a cocktail, her server badge displayed her name, Fiona, trainee. But this isn't just a story about revenge. 2 weeks later, after monitoring the situation remotely and confirming their departure schedule through Thomas, I arrived at the island, having timed my private flight to coincide with their departure day. Fiona was working at the beach bar, her designer clothes replaced by the simple staff uniform, her carefully maintained appearance wilted in the tropical heat. Having fun? I asked, sitting at the bar. She stared at me, her anger seemingly replaced by exhaustion. Why did you do all this? Because you needed to understand that worth isn't determined by background or bank accounts, I replied. Every person who served you a drink, cleaned your room, or prepared your meals is a human being deserving of dignity and respect. Tears formed in her eyes. I never thought about it that way. I know, I said softly. That was the problem. From that day forward, Fiona Hayes was a changed woman. The experience of walking in someone else's shoes literally transformed her perspective. She established a foundation providing educational scholarships to service industry workers. And yes, she finally learned to treat people with respect regardless of their occupation or background. These days, our family dinners are different. Fiona asks the serving staff about their lives and aspirations. She remembers their names and stories. Last Christmas, she even insisted on serving dinner herself, saying it helps her remain grounded. Emerald Bay Resort is still mine, but now it operates a unique program where privileged individuals can experience working in service positions. Fiona helps manage it, sharing her story as a cautionary tale about prejudice and pride. As for Nathan and me, we still enjoy our morning coffee at the same shop where we met. Sometimes Fiona joins us, chatting easily with the baristas she once would have ignored. She's learned that true character isn't about how you treat your equals, it's about how you treat those you once considered beneath you. Last week, she surprised me with a handmade photo album filled with pictures from that infamous island vacation. On the final page, she'd written, "Thank you for teaching me that the best view of life comes from getting off your high horse." I keep that album in my office at the resort, a reminder that sometimes the greatest luxury isn't about thread counts or private jets. It's about the ability to see the worth in every person you meet. And Fiona? She still works 1 shift a month at the beach bar. She says it keeps her humble.